you two things that, a couple of things. Jim has spent the last 26 years caring for people in middle and more advanced stages of Huntington's in nursing homes, assisted living, and hospital settings. He's a special education teacher by training and a licensed nursing home administrator. He was a member of the team that wrote the Caregiver's Handbook for Advanced Stage HD, and it's been downloaded and is available on our website and has been for over 10 years. He is the author of Hurry Up and Wait, a cognitive care companion for HD in the middle and more advanced years, and he's been a long-time leader in the international movement. So he's going to lead us in what is called a fun and interactive presentation. So please welcome Jim, and I hope we all enjoy the next bit. Good luck.
Thank you. It's a special honor to be here. In 1986, when I started, a few months later, can you all hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Ralph Walker called and said, we got to network you with a whole bunch of people around the world, and that happened, which I'm indebted to him, but Huntington Canada has always had my heart. So it's really an honor to be here. First of all, when Ralph called, we didn't need people like Dr. Ed Weil, Dr. Jeff Carroll to explain things to the degree they did. That's very exciting. You used to be able to read brochures for a little while, and then with the advances, and then they would get a little bit more complicated, and then it went through the phase where you'd be like holding on by your fingertips to understand it, and then we got explainers. So they did a really great job, and they do it fun, and I really get it. But the advances are just so exciting, especially to us old timers who've been going to these things for a long time. First of all, before I begin, just two quick things. One is, as I listen to all the advances, I never lose sight of the volunteers who volunteer for studies and clinical trials and that kind of stuff. Now, one participates in research confidentially, but if there's anybody, but most people actually, I would suspect, are pretty open about their participation. If there are any research subject volunteer folks here, would you just raise your hand so we can recognize you? Stand up for a minute. Stand up. You all are the foundation of science. And I can't say it any more succinctly. You are the foundation for all this that's happened. We, as a part of the community, I'm just using my introductory remarks here as a bully pulpit so that none of you ever feel like this community doesn't really value your contribution. We are profoundly indebted to you. That said, I want to announce that you are now in, for the next 90 minutes, a research-free zone. Okay? A HD, the husband of an HD, a woman with Huntington's disease, a guy named Ronald Roberts of California wrote this in 1996. And I want to share it with you. I think, even though the gist of it, as you'll see, is a certain feel, Ronald must be as equally excited as the rest of us by all that's happened. So here's Ode to Research, Ode to HD Research. On top of all the stress and strain, and fear of the loss, the psychic drain, coping with the risk ahead of giving care with all its dread, now comes the jargon of the lab as science shares its chatty gab. Now one more way our stomachs churn, and more language we must learn, proline, endopeptidase, in other terms a salt out of space. Bilateral quinolinate. Now there's a term to contemplate. There's ganglionic eminence and other terms that make no sense. There's not a one of them routine explains striatal dopamine. Or tryptophan metabolites or melanite and other frights. There's CAG and RNA with dorsal caudate interplay. And neurons that regenerate and aspartate and glutamate, excitotoxic neuron death. There's hardly time to catch your breath. Of all the things that cause us stress, much more than words can half express. The other losses that depress are worse by far than this, I guess. But still, this abstract language mess is one more insult, I confess. So, here's to Ronald Roberts, but in seriousness, here's to the foundation of science, you volunteers, and all the people who are working on our collective behalf. All right, with that we begin. We're talking about caring, and I always feel it's absolutely imperative to understand caring as an act of love, right? We can only, once that love is present, be a little bit wiser and more sophisticated sometimes to be more effective in our care. So caring is love. Now, a little bit of preview here. The goal is to think of what it might feel like to think with Huntington's disease. And the word is feel, as in kind of a visceral thing. I hope to convince you what that might be like here in the next 90 minutes. And I must ask the indulgence of those of you who actually have Huntington's disease. I don't have Huntington's, so it's somewhat presumptuous for me to do this. And I'm going to be asking for some volunteers. Pause, so that you'll have time to say. But if you have HD, you're free of all this stuff, okay? But I ask you to indulge us. Don't laugh at some of the folks without HD as they try these things, all right? Just have your own little smirk to yourself. So, what it might feel like to think with Huntington's disease, talk about some of the characteristics of Huntington's disease and how those characteristics create conditions. And the conditions are easy: apathy, irritability, and something else I call in the zone. And we'll do this by playing a couple of little exercises to simulate these features. And you'll also hopefully be convinced that thinking with the challenges of the cognitive changes that come with Huntington's disease are not unlike those of us who don't have HD, only they're much more magnified. But you will recognize some of the feelings. And especially if you're in my category of one who has the most prevalent progressively neurodegenerative disease, aging.
She does too.
She was late.
And some more business before we get going here. I don't pretend to have any answers to the challenges that carers face or those who actually live with Huntington's disease. But I hope I bring to you some new ideas or maybe different ways of seeing things and different approaches, especially to teach other people, the people you work with, or any one of the thousands of people you're going to have to do a nutshell description of what is Huntington as you tell them about your family. What we're talking about may not be of relevance now, but in the total course of a course of Huntington's disease that people endure, it probably will have some relevance at some point. And I want you to know that there is a science and there is actually organized thought to all of the care challenges, the real practical day-to-day challenges, moment-to-moment challenges that you face. So please understand that there are unlimited expressions of Huntington's disease. You know that you also know that within your own families, right? If one person with HD may not be very much like the other person's experience with HD. And it's always changing. But there are some similarities across people and some general approaches that are helpful, and we don't pretend that these are answers. Some people have such serious challenges living with HD that it's beyond the scope of these things. Okay, before we begin the exercises, you will need a pen and paper. Now would be a good time to grab them.
Yes.
And the pads are right there in the center of the table.
Oh, thanks. I've got one, thank you.
And again, the goal is, what? Anybody need any? We got plenty of time.
Anyone need one?
So, this is 90 minutes. That's a long time. I promise I will try to make it feel quick. So make yourself comfortable. My objective is not to tell you what you already know, because I have great respect for family caregivers, and how much they've learned, and the people with Huntington's disease actually living with it, and all they've learned about coping strategies and how to adapt to challenges. But I do hope that when you leave, you see it in a new way. And again, to repeat myself, a new way to suggest it to others. So, the 5 characteristics that we're going to talk about quickly, because we'll go over each one a little bit more depth, are slower thinking. Not slow thinking, slower thinking. The fact that when we talk about memory, this notion of recognition is easier than recall. that people have difficulty changing topics and keeping focused on one thing at hand. That it gets more difficult to organize your thoughts and your actions. And last, but certainly not least, people have a difficult time waiting. Waiting for what? Anything. Yes, there are other features and other characteristics, but indulge me, those are the 5 we're going to talk about. Other important ones. And there are other conditions, as I said, in the zone is one of them, apathy and irritability, and there are more conditions. But for now, we're just going to talk about those 3. So, there they are, and again, the 5 characteristics cause the 3 conditions. That said, we move on to the first one. What do we know about slower thinking? Well, we know that fewer cells in the brain are working well. We know that, and that's what I mean by slower processing of information, slow processing of thought, slow processing of all that you're getting perceptually. That creates slower thinking, slower decisions. Actually, even with people with a lot of chorea, their bradykinesia, their behavior really slows in many ways. Most importantly, to those of us who live with and love people with Huntington's disease, it's delays in processing information and often in having conversations, as we'll talk about in a bit. So, what does it feel like to think slower? Well, there's an exercise we're going to do with the pen and paper at this point. And when I tell you to begin, I want you to write your name. First and last name. Thank you. Cursive, if you would. And just write your name over and over again until first and last name, until I tell you to stop. Okay? Am I clear on that instruction?
But you haven't said start.
No, but I haven't said start yet. I love a pliant audience.
Do you want it legible?
Somewhat legible, yeah. No doctor prescription stuff. Okay? Please begin. Stop. Now, that was 15 seconds. I'd like to figure out what you might have got if we actually did a minute. So count up the number of letters that you wrote, not the number of times you wrote your names. The number of letters that you wrote.
30.
And then, because it was 15 seconds, and we want to get you to the rate, the count per minute, we want you to multiply whatever you counted up and multiply it by 4. And then, if everybody got that? Just shout out, some of you would shout out.
140.
140.
160.
120, 160. 146. 40. 56.
80.
80. Any in back? 136. If we actually did this, and we're doing this loosely, obviously, but most of them are up there in the 120 to 160 kind of range. That's fluent handwriting, letters per minute, okay? Now, yeah, so some of the things got a little off there, right? Okay, but that's roughly the range of fluent writing. Now, we want to know what it feels like to do something slowly. So we're going to take the range of those rates, and we're going to go way down, way down, way down, to 6 letters per minute. That's 1 every 10 seconds. So you're going to need some help with that. And I have to model and coach it. So that means 1 letter every 10 seconds. That means like the first letter in my name, the J, would take 10 seconds to write. So I'd start with the J, and then at 5 seconds be halfway through, and 10 seconds finishing up, starting the second letter, halfway through, finishing up, starting the next, like that. Okay? You with me? So, I'm going to do it just the way I did myself. I'll say, please start the first letter. You should be halfway through it, finishing up, start the second one. Too many puzzled looks here. I am kind of doing this quickly. I've confused you.
That's easy.
It must be if I can, so. You with me though? Know what I mean?
I'm with you. Do it slow.
What?
Do it slow.
Do it slow. Okay?
And big.
Do it as.
Well, you don't do big, whatever's comfortable.
Is it one letter for 10 seconds?
I'm going to coach you through it. You'll know by, okay? So, please begin that first letter. You should be about halfway through the first letter now. And finishing that first letter, starting the second. About halfway through and finishing that one, starting the next. Halfway through that one, finishing, starting. And halfway through that one, and finishing, starting. Halfway through, 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 stop. Wait, let's keep going. How'd that feel? Awkward. Normal. For somebody with a, no, he says normal for somebody who has ADHD, right? Those who don't, let's ask those who don't, right?
Awkward.
Awkward. Other words.
Frustrating.
Frustrating.
I want to erase.
Slow. Concentrating. It takes focus, right?
Yeah.
Other words. Lost my attention. Lost my attention.
Exhausting.
Exhausting. That's my favorite. Yeah, exhausting. Boring. Boring. So, first of all,
I felt like hurry up and let's go.
what? So, there's mine. How did it feel? Obviously, you wouldn't want to continue unless you were, right? So, we did how it feel. How long did we do that for? About 1.5 minutes. And I started to hear things, you know, people talking to one another, so I was curious at how far I could push, you know? But it is tiring. It is exhausting, concentrating, as somebody said. And distractions come easily, too. Like, it occurred to me how hot it is in here. You know, but I didn't think of that until I was engaged in just looking at a watch. It's easy to pay attention to things that you otherwise wouldn't when everything is slowing down. So it makes focus harder. It makes focus harder in that way, too. I also like to point out that in a group this size, I'm sure somebody had these thoughts privately, but if we went on a little longer, they might have become a little more public, and they are, okay, we get the point. How much longer? Come on, give us a break, man. Right? those are what I like to call the seeds of misbehavior, right? It's easy to get in trouble when everything is slowed down, and it brings out kind of those feelings and thoughts in a very real way. So, it also affects quality. When you slow down any human behavior, it really, once you've reached fluency, it does affect the quality, and all you got to do is look at your writing, and it's like a time machine back into the 5th grade when you learn cursive, right? Right? Weird. So, how does it feel? As we said, exhausting, boring. I don't have to read from this because you gave us your own words. The problem is when you do anything fluently, whether it's writing or thinking, anything that you did unconsciously before, where now it has to become conscious to do it, it's draining.
Is it draining for the person with Huntington's if they're not being pressured by anybody doing this? Do they get accustomed to that? But then if we come along and say, well, are you ready? Then does that becomes exhausting for the
Hold that thought. Dawn, come up here. Now, as you were asking that question, Jerry, you couldn't see it. When you said, is it like that with the person with ice? He was in the back of the room basically doing jumping jacks.
I want to answer that question. It's frustrating as hell because you still have the cognitive ability that's not measured in seconds. We still have the cognitive ability to think, to reason, to think bigger thoughts. That bigger part of our brain kind of is okay. The interactive part of our brain is really busted. So it's incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating.
whether you've got other people waiting there for you to.
Well, no,
read
just
task.
writing it.
Just doing that task.
Just doing it. But yeah, there's other input. But it's in, because, you know, it's like, we have two parts of our brain. One is that cognitive interactive part that thinks really quickly, that you don't have any problem with, and mine's busted. And there's that bigger thinking thought, you know, thinking. That's okay. It's affected by Huntington's disease, but it's still in really good shape. Like, project into the future, I can reason, I can't do puzzles, I can do mysteries, so that kind of thing. It's really frustrating.
Thank you, my brother. Now,
Well done.
I don't want you to steal my thunder either, you know. Yes, you don't have to do jumping jacks if you're actually. So it's automatic. What's automatic, and this is a human thing. If it's automatic and then you lose that fluency, it really is, the act of having to pay attention to it is annoying. A guy with Huntington's once told his neurologist, I feel like my autopilot's broken. That what I did automatically before, now I have to think about it, chart the course. Now, the reason something is so slow, you stop doing it when you slow down. The reason I have people do the fluent writing, right? The whatever, 120 to 160 letters per minute, and the slow writing, because we could just do the slow writing, is because, so if you're up here in this range of fluency, and then you get down to 6 a minute, the way human behavior decelerates, it doesn't go, first of all, it bounces around, but it doesn't go all the way down to 6 letters a minute. Nobody writes their name at 6 letters a minute. They would make a mark, sign an X, or ask somebody else to do it, or avoid it altogether. The point is, as it decelerates that frequency from that range down, people stop doing it. And the reason I point this out is as a nursing home care guy, because you have a lot of staff that'll say, he could do it if he really wanted to. He just doesn't want to. Damn right. Because all humans, when they lose that fluency, stop doing it. It's a pain in the butt. It doesn't feel good. But that's why. So they'll avoid things. But that's why we do that, is to make that point alone, is you don't go down to 0, you don't go down to 6, you drop out doing stuff long before. So it's a neuro thing, it's not a personality thing. It's a neuro thing. So, when do we see this? Slower thinking. Now again, I haven't been able to concoct an activity that just is purely cognitive to show this. So yeah, it's actually movement, the writing thing. But you really see the delays most often in processing, in conversations. Oh, the other thing I need to note, that's why I need PowerPoint to keep me on track. As skills deteriorate, and I say this because there's hope hidden in here, they always don't go down. Sometimes they go down and then they come back up for a while and go down and come up. That's something that somebody should study, by the way. Because it does come back. All of a sudden, people will be doing really well, and then it will go down again. And overall, the trend is down, but there are times when delays, which are predictable, maybe 10 seconds. Some people 10 seconds. We'll talk about that later. That's a long time to wait, and people won't. But other times will be quick. Let me tell you a story how I learned about delays, processing delays. And if you've heard me speak, you know this story, because people have already told me this today. I worked in a nursing home, and I would come in every morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, walk to my office, and this is the days of nursing homes when people were a lot more able-bodied and less really sick. So I would walk by them and, you know, just be gracious and friendly as I walked in, and just kind of something, whether eye contact or a little wave, how you doing, man? You know, just some acknowledgement, how you doing? Just look at them. This went on every day, I did this. But there was one woman in the lobby, Cindy, who would never ever respond to me. No eye contact, no head nod, no smile, no nothing. And I, being as charming as I am, you know, I figure I can win her over, right? I just got to be more charming, more consistent, and I do it every day, and nothing. Then one day, and this is literally a year later. Why do I know that? Because the Christmas tree was up again. So a full year cycle.
Let's take it down.
That's yeah. You should have known the maintenance guy. You're not far off, but nonetheless. So one day, after a long time, I'm walking there, and a salesman stops me and starts to pitch his product to me. And I can see Cindy there, and our physiotherapist walks by. And Cindy says, hello. I'm like, what's up with that? Sue must be more charming than me, which we know factually is not true. But I was like, how did she get my hello? Yeah, I'm sorry, how did she get hello and I don't? Run back to my office, call Sue up. You gotta come down here right away, da-da-da. She comes in, thinks I'm a lunatic, because she didn't understand how much this meant to me. I'd been at this a long time. I said, how come Cindy says hello to you and not me? And she says, I don't know. Did you wait long enough? And then, as we say in Easton, Massachusetts, dawn over marble head. And it occurred to me, I'd just be blowing by and not whatever. And she said, I think my hello that Sue got was your hello. So, next day, I have the scientific integrity not to rush out and try it right away. I wait till the next day and come by, I stop in front of Cindy, I say, hey Cindy, and then because I have difficulty waiting for anything, my hand goes in my pocket where I'm going alligator 1, alligator 2, just waiting for her. And now the little seeds of misbehavior, the little devil comes in and says, I knew this was a bunch of crap. I knew this wasn't going to work. Just when I'm ready to go about my way, she says, hi, Jim. Whoa. So then I began to realize that the processing delays are real. They're real, but the way the cultures are, we're doing everything in a hurry. At different points in the course of Huntington's, the processing delays are somewhat predictable. You can get, well, it'll be around 3 seconds for everybody for a long period of time. Some people may have processing delays even longer than that. 15 seconds, which frankly is a lifetime, if you will, waiting for something, you know? But they're there, and that's how I learned it. Now, you see this in conversations with people. there's like that natural rhythm back and forth in human conversations. But if you have difficulty, slower, not slow, slower processing than usual, it takes the kilt out of, that makes it more difficult to get that natural flow. But it doesn't mean that that person is not thinking, feeling, seeing, sensing, interacting, cooperating. It's just that it's slower. But when we're on the other end of the equation, we're just not enculturated to wait till that happens. I don't want to skip this because of time. No, I'm not. Enter the notion of this discussion I had with a guy named Tony, who once I was listening to him, and he was reminiscing about his daughter. Late one night, nothing going on in the nursing home, and he was talking about his daughter, and that she had just graduated from high school, and what it was like when she was a little girl, and he was living at home. And I kept asking him questions, because I was interested. It's like, so how old is your daughter now? Or, yeah, is she the one in the picture in your room? Those just, whatever, keep the conversation going. But no matter what I said, I could tell Tony was here. I just could sense like there wasn't any warmth here. Whatever I was doing, I was irritating him. So finally, Tony said, I cut him off when he wanted to say something. And when I asked a question back, like, what's your daughter's name, for example, I got as far as, and he would start to say something like, my wife used to put ribbons in her hair. So he's saying that, and I'm cutting him off. Then I start to kind of figure out that my not waiting for him to finish it and cutting that off was really what was annoying him a bit, enervating him, as we say. And Tony said, yeah, you keep setting I said, I'm really sorry, man. He said, you keep setting my ticker back. And that means that if you're gonna say, hey, Tony, you want, what's your daughter's name? And he was gonna say, Louise. If you're Tony and have the misfortune to have people like me in his world, you get this. What's your daughter's name? What?
Who's so charming.
Who's such a charming pain in the butt, right? So if you're going to go here, and it's going to be Louise, you got me. And it's, Tony, what's your daughter's name? Is it Maria? Is she your only daughter? And that enervates the pain in the butt when so Tony said, that's his ticker. You set my ticker back, and I got to rethink this. So that's another way I kind of learned about processing, none of which surprised a lot of family caregivers, I might add. So, interrupting slow processing, resetting your timer. People often report, as they live with Huntington's, that it is aggravating. And people like me were unaware doing this for years, just how aggravating it was. And that sometimes if you ask a question and the answer would be no, Tony, do you want to jump off a bridge? No, you damn fool. That if you don't wait, people presume that they're not going to answer or that they don't want to, or no timely answer is intended as a no. That's not the case. Okay.
Or worse, there's nothing there.
Or what?
Or worse, there's nothing there.
Or worse, there's nothing there.
But there's something.
Right. Yep. So how can we help with this slow thinking thing? Here's the most sobering message that none of us want to hear nowadays in the hustle bustle of our daily lives in every country. Slow down. Simply wait. So here I am. That's my message to you. It's like, you got to be out of your mind. He's telling us to wait. I don't really want you to have to wait, but the unique features, the unique cognitive features of this problem compel us to wait if we want people to express themselves. Nobody, as simple as waiting is, nobody could expect more of us. It's so difficult to do in our lives. I hate to be the message of saying, because I know how hard it is. And, which puts us in the bind of waiting. Now, remember the cognitive features, slower thinking, recognition, and the recall. The fifth one was can't wait, which you all seem to know about intuitively. So, what we're saying is for people to express themselves, wait. But they, the people you're waiting for to wait, the folks with HD, they have difficulty waiting. So, when they want something, the advice, hurry up. Give it to them as timely as you can. But when they need to express themselves, wait. So, that's hurry up and wait. Ah! My God, what does that feel like? Hurry up and wait. Frustrating. For the carer. Now, if you're the guy with Huntington's, what does it feel like? Same thing. What a marriage. Ah! Okay, so slower thinking, treatment waiting. Next one, recognition. We're talking about the domain of memory here. And believe me, memory is a huge science, but we're going to take a chunk out of it and just oversimplify it here. And there's two domains of memory. So for people with Huntington's, accessing and expressing them, their memories, their information fund, gets more difficult. But it's there. I'm just making the distinction between that and Alzheimer's disease, where it's basically non-existent, it's gone. Here, people, it's an access thing, access and expression thing. Okay, so there's really two kinds we're talking about, that we're going to talk about. Recognition and recall. Now, what's recall? What's recognition? Each one has its own feeling that you will recognize. So, next written exercise, what I would like you to do is draw a penny. Now, I have been advised by several Canadians here that this may be your last opportunity to draw a penny before we start asking for loonies or whatever, okay? But just draw a penny. Question, front or back, it doesn't matter, just draw a penny. Okay, now, you don't have to share that with anybody.
Good.
How did you do? All eyes forward to the screen. Ready?
And the one sentence date, long sentence, okay.
Listen to you all.
She told me to draw.
These are on the next one. You have to
She told you to draw what?
like a beaver. That's on the next one.
I just did
Listen
a
to you.
representation of.
Feels good. It definitely feels different than recalling it. So that's recognition. Reaching down your memory to figure out, you've seen it billions of times. That's different. Now, it's not like slow writing. That's exhausting and annoying versus fluent writing. I'm not saying that drawing a penny is an aversive thing, but it is different when you use recall than when you recognize stuff. It's just a different feeling and a little bit more effort. That's all we're saying. Not a bad thing, but a little tiny, tiny bit more. So, how did recognition feel? I say it's kind of easier, right? It's easier. But when I was going like this, it also feels like relief. Like all of a sudden you guys were like, oh yeah, chatting, laughing, joking. You know, it's different, it feels different than that event of just having to reach down and say, oh, maple leaf or beaver. So, all I'm saying is, if you don't have HD, imagine answering every simple question or figuring every simple thing out, as simple as they are, with just that tiny bit of extra effort required to recall versus then simply recognize. It is a quantifiable but feeling, palpable, different thing to recall. That's what, because that's impaired. It's a cognitive thing, a neural thing. So, recognition is easy to recall. When do we see it? We can see it in ourselves. When we said before, having HD thinking with HD is not in a lot of ways is similar to thinking without HD. And the example I use is, if you're in the 5th grade when you're writing like you were writing at 6 letters per minute, if you missed an examination in school, a test, you might call up your chum and say, hey, I was out sick today, was there a test? And they say, yeah, there was a test. The next question you might ask is, what kind of questions are on the test, right? Because you want multiple choice, right? Do you want essay, or do you call them essay questions or open-ended questions? Essay, yeah, us too. You don't want essay questions, right? You want multiple choice. And because you're real people, you know that it's too good to expect the good Lord to ever give us every question yes, no, where you'd have a 50% chance of getting everything. You want multiple choice. Why do you want multiple choice? Because recognition is all you got to do is find recognizing. Essay questions, you got to recall. Much higher complex thought processes, recall. Got to figure out what you're going to write, what you're going to say, organize that. And then, as I always like to point out, put in the BS factor so that the person thinks you know actually more than you do. Very higher level skill. But we all prefer recognition. We hate open-ended questions, multiple choice questions. The answer's always there with proof of us. Okay. The point is, this stuff is true in simple, simple questions. The day-to-day simple stuff. Like, the example is, for those of a certain vintage, who was your favorite Beatle? Let it go. 50 years ago. Okay? But that's an open-ended question, right? If you can multiple choice it by saying simply who's your favorite Beatle, John, Paul, George, or Ringo. Exactly, exactly. It didn't change your answer. But that's all I'm saying. These questions we're talking about are not complicated things, they're simple things. And sometimes the effect is tiny. But if you look at hundreds of interactions a day, times 7 days, we're talking about a huge thing in the entire course of living with Huntington. And we know that yes and no questions, but you can always even make it simpler for people as their cognitive challenges get more and more difficult. Was John your favorite Beatle? Was Paul your favorite Beatle? Et cetera, okay? So what do? Because of that simple thing, over the years at home or in care homes, you can start interacting with people, asking those essay open-ended questions, and if people aren't responding quickly, then you make them easier with the multiple choice thing. What do you want to do? You want to go in the dining room or your living room or what, you know? And if not, yes, no. And if people still don't answer, and as you do this exercise, as we say, retreat and reapproach, go, think it over, come back. But after you do this a couple of times with people in your life, you'll figure out where to go. It's a nice little test to figure it out. Then you do that all the time. It's very simple. And sometimes it's so simple as it's simply asking, I'm asking you to do nothing more than maybe, instead of asking, hey, when was your doctor's appointment? To simply say, when was your doctor's appointment? 11 or 10? Or when was your doctor's appointment? In the evening or afternoon, whatever kind of thing. I just say that to again make the point. The simple questions are simple. Okay, that was feature number 2. Feature number 3, topic changes are difficult. What do we know about this? Neuropsychologists talk about this notion of dividing one's attention. This notion of cognitive interference. And some of you are familiar with, because it's in high school psych books these days, this thing called the Stroop task. Anybody familiar with that? That's good. There you go. So, whoops. In this task, what you're going to do, you've got to direct your attention, keep focused on one thing, trying to keep other information away so you can stay focused, do something else, and you have to switch your attention back and forth, trying to keep it all straight and sorted out. How does it feel to have difficulty changing topics and staying on task? I need a volunteer.
You had to say that.
She's jumping out of her seat behind you, man.
I gotta stand, I'm guessing?
You have to come on up. Come on down. You're not colorblind, right?
I don't think so.
Good. We'll find out. Okay, so, face the screen. Here's what we'd like you to do. Actually, why don't you get over here and give yourself an advantage? Okay? Whoops. I want you to be comfortable. We don't want to put you under any pressure. A lot of people here, I wouldn't let that, I wouldn't even think of that. You can't lose. You can't screw this up. We don't want to stress you out now. Do we? No! Okay, everybody friends, you can't fail. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's go. Say the colors of the word. Am I reading the word or saying the colors? You're saying the colors.
Red, green, blue, yellow, pink, orange, blue, green, blue, white, green, yellow, orange, blue, white, black. Red, blue, yellow, green, pink, yellow, green, blue, red.
Right? Same deal again, right? And yes, the colors on this projector, I could diddle with them, are a little off. So we will indulge you. You're right. You said brown, but you're right. It was black. Okay, cool. Okay? So just do the best you can. You ready? Now try it. Say the colors of the word, not what the word says.
Green, yellow, white, pink, orange, blue, orange, yellow, green, man. Red, blue, green, red, pink, blue, yellow, pink, green, red, red, blue, red, orange, red, green.
Very well done. Now, Bob, turn around. What's tough about it? What's going through your head?
I have the tendency to want to read the word because you just read from left to right. Every time you see a word, you have no choice but to read it. And so to try and shift your set to recognize that it's the color is you have to put more effort into trying to do that.
Conscious of it in your head, right? Like did you say? Right?
Yeah.
That's the difficulty with HD, with the challenge, is keeping that stuff at bay and organizing it and getting yourself. That's what gets slowed down. Thank you very well. That was excellent, man. It wasn't easy. Questions, comments here? So, was that difficult? Second one, definitely. When you're bouncing back and forth between, I gotta just say the damn colors, you're telling yourself, it has the beginnings of that kind of, especially when you were up, what was your name?
Kapil.
Kapil's up here publicly. It's kind of like you're fighting off confusion within your own head. Again, you have the theme, an unconscious, what would be done unconsciously, like the first one is now conscious, and it feels, ugh. When you see it, when anybody has to do two things at once, we live in a multitasking culture. And a lot of times people, not a lot of times, very common that people with Huntington's disease get stuck on one topic and perseverate, right? It's all in that domain. So how can we help? We minimize distractions just so we can have it. Then we listen to to Phil's brain. He slowed down, right? Now there's a lesson there. Well, I can't do it as fast. Yeah, but it's really your brain slowing you down. So that's an adaptive strategy. Like wait, go slow. One thing at a time, right? When you were looking at it, you weren't looking at the line like you were flying through the first time. One thing at a time. Now, I know this stuff is obvious. I know how obvious it is. I know how simple this principle is. But it's absolutely helpful to pay attention to this. I mean, I feel like you're stating the obvious, man. It is, but I am. But if we apply this and really get it, it's really, really hard. As we say in Eastern Massachusetts, it's wicked hard. Wicked hard. And sometimes its simplicity is the problem, because it's not sophisticated enough, and we like our answers to have some weight to them, you know? It's too easy to take as important, but it is. So, anytime, whoops. So that's that. That's the third feature. Fourth feature. Any questions on this? Any comments?
I've done that red, blue, whatever thing like 50 million.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I've done that thing like so many times, but it's still like, still looking at it. It's even the first one he did, I'm like, oh man, because I'm anticipating knowing what's coming next, and like almost doing it wrong just because you kind of know what's coming in a
The
way.
stomach was in a big knot when it came up in the screen.
Yeah, like that's what I'm trying, the
Yeah.
visceral feeling.
Or you're trying to figure out a different way to like get it right. Like for me, I was like, just don't focus on it, and then you'll just see colors, and you won't be able to read words because words will be blurry, but I'll see the color. Like it's like just.
And thank God I didn't volunteer that time.
There's more opportunities coming up. But what I would say on in your defense, it's a neural thing. It's a neural thing. Despite your best efforts, man. Right? Next one. Fourth one. Difficulty organizing planning. Sequencing of both your thoughts and actions. I need another volunteer. Now, I feel like if you didn't get a chance, you're going to be disappointed after the. Come on over here. Stay here. Put this blindfold on. Made by my wife, because she couldn't believe I used to use torn sheets with people. Okay, now, we know, what's your name?
Allie.
Ollie, we know you have lots of integrity. Okay. So you wouldn't cheat, right? And look, okay? Beautiful. Now, excellent. And thank you for being a good sport, by the way. We'd like you to return to your seat.
That's true.
As long as you don't spill my coffee.
Okay, stop, right? Stop. All right. Take that lap out. No. Okay, hold on a second.
Hold on, Dave.
Okay, proceed. Okay, stop. Good enough. Ready? Now. Okay. Come up there now. So, when I told you that, what went through your head when I gave you the instruction? What?
Blindly making my way back.
So, but you had to decide, right? Some kind of plan popped into your head, right?
I needed to retrace my steps.
Right.
And figure out what my path was when I got there.
Yeah.
Figure out what direction I was going, and maybe use my foot to coordinate where I was.
That kind of plan that under duress, when you did that, that kind of plan that pops into your head, right? That's what gets slower with HD. Doesn't go away, but it slows down and gets more difficult. Now, I let you go that far, and you really did excellent maintaining your safety too, I might add, and certainly not alienating anybody along the way. But then, they say people with honey disease hate surprises. I gave you a little surprise when I flipped you around.
I don't know what you were. I think I ran into him.
Right.
It was like,
Did you like me, as charming as I am, any better when I spun you around?
Not really.
Not
I
really,
actually
no?
knew where I was going.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when you are doing those complicated planning things, executing them, and then you get a wrench thrown in like a surprise, it becomes difficult. That's one of the challenges of thinking with Huntington's disease. Any other comments? Thank you. You what? Now, obviously, visual, the Huntington's thing, the blindfold only forces us to be able to do that. Visual things, it's not relevant. So we added surprise, we had a plan, we put on this. So, how does it feel? Not only do you get difficulty, one of the cognitive difficulty.
Mind if I say something?
No?
That's when, we talked during the movie, we were talking about anger, frustration, and we get jerked. We overreact in an angry way. We need stabilizers, the antidepressants help. But that suddenly finding yourself being jerked around in a circle, that's a really tough time.
Feeling.
Feeling. Yep. Well, actual fact, you overreact. You respond with breaking something or smashing something.
Not only is it more difficult to plan and organize your movement, it's equally as difficult to plan and organize your thoughts. Do things, as we say, stuff you do in your head. Let me show you. I need another volunteer.
Nobody wants to be a girl in there.
Come on. Allie did the worst thing, so I'm not going to. So, here's what we'd like you to do. It's a little mental arithmetic, and this may be familiar to many of you have been in research subjects kind of thing, research studies, okay? So we want you to face them, okay? What's your name?
Michelle.
Michelle, thank you for volunteering. So here's what we'd like you to do. Now this involves organizing your thoughts, doing a certain sequence of things, and coming up with ways to get it done, okay? We want you to count backwards from 100 by 7.
193, 86, 79, 72, 65, 58, 51, 44, 30, 37.
Stop, that's wonderful. Very good. Now, first of all, we gotta just tell you, what the hell were you looking at? Right? The answer, right? Because there's weird little, there's behaviors that pop in when we start getting these cognitive challenges. You were looking up there. And then some little facial things, like I think you didn't say 72, I think you said something like 70. So those are indicators of just that there's more going on there, right? Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about how you did it in your head.
I went by 3s and 4s.
You mean break 7 into 3s and 4s? Yep. So if you had like 93, you took a 3 here and went 4 deep into the 80s.
Yeah.
So you broke it into 7s and you did those.
Or like 6 and 1, whatever.
Exactly.
5 and 2.
Right. Which is even higher complex, all the configurations of 7 and single digit, But you maintained going in one direction. You held on to what group of 10 you were in to go down. That is the stuff, organizing, keeping that stuff straight, that gets impaired and harder to do with the cognitive challenges of Huntington's. Whether it's the plan that pops into your head for Allie or your little thing, that's what gets harder. That's why it's on that test. But that feeling, it's a feeling thing as you're struggling, right? Because you're going 70, right? You're struggling in your head. Thank you, man. Now, you may recognize this in Serial 7 in the mini mental status exam. Now, how would you feel if every day you had to go to that extra effort to do things like common things, not novel things like count backwards by 100 from 100 by 7, but the simple stuff if you had to go through all that Michelle just did in her head to do that stuff. We all feel this way, and here's the example. So as we say, thinking with HD, the challenges, the feelings, are not unlike thinking without HD. For example, is everybody ready? You got your pencil and paper? Okay, here's what I want you to do. Try these. Divide these numbers. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
I don't even remember.
I don't hear anybody say, oh, come on, man, let us do those. Right? We all feel that way when we did something fluently that's complicated, like long division, just like the serial 7s backwards, where you got the estimation kind of thing you got to do in long division, the gazintas kind of thing, and then multiply it out, and then do a little subtraction back, and then go back and do the estimation and that kind of stuff. We all can do that, thank the Almighty, for calculators and everything else. So because of that, we've lost it. It's not a functional skill anymore in our day-to-day environment, and we've lost fluency. But would you be able to do them if you had to? Yes, right? But not fluently. So it's been a long time since you did them, but that long division involves all of those sequencing activities, planning, doing 2 things at once, holding on to one thing while you step out and do another little add fact. Those involve the things that are challenged cognitively in Huntington. And that's why we avoid them, right? It's like, oh man, I don't want long division. It feels less. So, now it's difficult. How does it feel? We hate doing it, da 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 da. So, let's go back under number 4, where we stand on all of this stuff. I'm good, by the way. In review, think about how it felt with the blindfold and Allie having to get that plan and how difficult that was, how draining that serial 7s can be within Michelle's head, your reaction to long division, all that you did unconsciously and automatically like the long division now needs conscious concentration and effort, and all of these changes are more difficult, draining, and if done for a length of time, like 10 or 15 seconds, are exhausting. So then I'm going to skip that slide for time reasons. Okay. I'm going to skip that for time reasons. So all of before we get to the last one, all of these things, all of these feelings are not unfamiliar to us without Huntington's disease, right? They're feelings that you can induce. Only when they become more and more challenged, it gets harder and harder to think that way, and it feels like, what thing did you want to do, punch the wall or get angry, that Dawn was referring to? Because viscerally, it's a terrible feeling. So, on top of all of those things, all of those feelings, on top of that, we know that the 5th feature is people have difficulty waiting. Are they impatient? I say it's a neuro thing. So maybe we can call it, but it's a neuro thing. We know that lack of inhibition is a problem. We know that some people's sense of time is somewhat altered that contributes to their not being able to wait a long time. People get locked onto a topic over and over. When do we see people, where do we see this can't wait thing? If you have Huntington's disease, you often ask yourself, what the hell is taking them so long to simply help me fill in the blank? If you love someone with Huntington's disease, live with them, they're in your care. If you're not family, you may ask yourself this, fill in the blank. When someone with Huntington's disease wants something, they want it
Yesterday.
Sometimes it seems that people with HD just can't. That is what, isn't it predictable, first of all, right? I've done this talk all over the place. Same thing, that's why it's there. Neuropsychology refers to the cognitive phenotype. Cognitive phenotype is very easy to tap into when you ask the right questions and identify the right targets that families live with, whether you have HD or you live with folks with HD. Okay, that's why, what can we do about can't wait? It's a tough one. Obviously, don't say the word no when somebody wants something. Don't tell them to wait. Whoops, that kind of thing. When somebody wants something and you say, I'll get it in a minute, remember that a minute is 60 seconds, not when you get around to it, even with all the other things going on. And never try to reason with anybody who can't wait, right? Jonathan Swift in the 1700s once wrote, it is useless to try to attempt to reason a man out of something he wasn't reasoned into in the first place. So if you're in a nursing home, believe me, if you want something right now, the NA, the nurse aide, should save his or her breath when she explains, I've got 8 other people to care for and this guy's got to do that. Do it now. You can always do it early, but you can never do it late. That's the rule. So, let's review the characteristics here as we wind up. Slower thinking feels like the fatigue of writing slowly. Anything fun when you're tired? No, nothing. The concentration, the extra concentration is required to do the same thing that you know how to do well. The focus that it takes, even when you're doing it so slow. You don't want to go on. Recall the difficulty, not strike that, I shouldn't say difficult, that little tiny bit of effort it takes to recall a penny instead of simply recognizing it. And the relief that you don't get when you have difficulty recalling that you did when you saw the thing, went, oh, there it is. How might it feel, as I asked earlier, if every day, to every little question, you had to make that tiny bit of effort that it took to recall a penny? Think back to all the difficulty that he had, that he talked about within his head, doing the Stroop thing, two things at once. The blindfolded stuff, trying to come up with a plan and all the effort to do a simple thing, to execute that plan. Having to think again when I spun around for the distraction. The stuff Michelle had to do in her head with the sevens backwards. Everyday problems felt like having to do, what if everyday problems felt like having to do the long division that when you saw it you didn't want to do? And on top of all of this stuff, all of those features, you can't wait for anything. So you lay all those things on and then you can't wait. Let's ask ourselves as carers or family members who don't have Huntington's disease, could we endure with grace waiting for anything or everything we want? Or might it feel like this? Now, that overwhelming thing that I had mentioned, all those characteristics cause the three conditions. Three conditions, and you'll recognize these in your family members, and those of you with HD will recognize them. The first one is, to go back, sorry. The first condition is when I made this up, so this has no integrity, it's just something I made up. It's having a narrow focus, I call it in the zone, where people with all this cognitive challenges going on at any 1 minute, in the zone is, the conditions are in the zone, apathy and irritability. I'm hurrying here. In the zone is this narrow focus on what's next, where people only care about the next cigarette, or the next meal, or the next TV show, or whatever I see heads going so you can insert whatever it is. Just focused on that. It's almost like collective, or their whole behavior is fighting off the overload of all those cognitive features going on simultaneously every moment. It's almost like being focused on that one thing, being in the zone, is they're kind of saying, please, please, wait, just one thing at a time here. That's condition number one that you see from the layering of all the cognitive effects. Covered that. Oh, the next cigarette, the next meal. The other one is apathy, right? A prevalent, psychiatric, well-recognized condition in medicine, apathy. Apathy, and this is a quote, apathy is common in HD and is probably related to frontal lobe dysfunction. Apathetic patients become unmotivated and uninterested in their surroundings. They lose enthusiasm and spontaneity. Performance at work or school becomes sluggish. That's from the physician, that quote is from the physician's guide. So all I'm suggesting is that we look at apathy, and by the way, apathy is not necessarily people not wanting to do anything. It can take kind of that manifestation, but it also can take on what we see now in at least young people in America, this notion of parents will know this, how it feels, whatever, right? It's kind of whatever, go along to get along. That's apathy too. But if you look at all those conditions laid on top of another, taken all at once, apathy is one response, and irritability, Dawn, you were describing irritability, is another. Same thing, changes in the brain impair controlling or modulating impulses to do things, expressions of emotion, often anger. People with HD hate surprises, but we all hate surprises. We all hate surprises, right? I told you it's not much different. Let me show you. Did anybody, you know the things that you've written? Little notes here you're taking? Pass them up, friend. Pass them up. No. Right? No. People hate surprises. The other, right? We hate it. So, think of, in closing, all of the cognitive things that we did. And then that old thing you've heard about, the stress response, where humans under stress either fight or flight, as they say, right? So all of those layers featured on, one after another. You can think of fight as to steal your line back there, punch. You can think of irritability, that psychiatric condition, or that response to all these cognitive features, when overloaded within your head, as fight. And you can think of apathy, whatever, going along to get along, whatever, man, as flight. Get away from it.
I just, on apathy, I think when I look at it, I kind of understand that there's a lot of things I can't do, and people measure me based on those things. So all these things I'm not able to. I think we talk about people having feelings of need, contributing in some way. So it's really hard when all these things are broken, and because you're not contributing. You're not like the research scientist who used it in his head and able to overcome the limitations that come with. So apathy, I think, comes from that so much is broken that you don't feel like you're able to contribute. So your DNA basically saying, well, you're a useless piece of crap. But somehow, for me, I've got to figure a way that, despite all those failings, that I can still contribute in some way, where people will say, well, tell me that I'm contributing by the conversations they have with me. So so I just wanted to say, I think apathy is a little more complex.
And clearly, right. And I have ignored all the psychodynamic things that you've just...
So much we don't know.
Right. An underappreciated notion, by the way, apathy in Huntington's disease. Many, so given apathy and irritability, many, if not most people with HD often experience less well-defined, non-specific changes in personality and mood, such as irritability and apathy. Most of these psychiatric problems are believed to be related directly to the central nervous injury caused by HD. All I'm saying as a layman is that if you look at these exercises we do and layer them one on top of another, it's almost just like an adaptive response. I know they are psychiatric conditions, but it's almost like the same response anybody else would have if challenged, and all those things were layered one on top of another. So those three things, what can we do to help these things? They're the basics. And again, as I wind up here, they're such easy things, but they're so damn hard to do because they are so simple. One thing at a time, respond timely, build routines, all those kind of things. I know how difficult it is to wait. Okay, what does it feel like to think with HD? We only can speculate for those of us who don't have people like you guys to be our color commentators. Based on what we know about movement, like the writing thing, and based on neuropsychology, based on how we feel as people without HD when we try to simulate these things. Reports from people with Huntington's disease, comments about these things from people that have been here. The primary challenge of living with Huntington's disease, whether you have it or you live with somebody who has Huntington's disease, is finding relief from those moment-to-moment cognitive struggles. Over days, over years, over decades. Most importantly, I like to point out, over moments. There are so many just individual moments that accumulate. That really is the primary challenge for families as they face their day. And understanding them, these cognitive features, and changing how we carers behave, how we communicate by waiting and asking questions, will impact their struggle. And given the duration of the progression of Huntington's disease, cumulatively, it will impact their struggle greatly. And to do such, as we said right at the beginning, it's so hard, it is a profound act of love. Final comment. Looking at the worldwide family touched by Huntington's disease, until there's a cure, we have to worry about these kind of things, and there will be. It's not the movements as much, it's not the depression even, as disabling and horrible as that can be. The real challenges, the frightening aspects, are the changes in thinking. There's hope, though, I believe, that we can understand these things better and affect the experience, the actual experience of living with HD. So while we wait for a cure, until then, all we can do is work better to get these understandings. This is from the Irish Huntington's Association. This awareness poster. There's no cure of Huntington's disease, but if we can treat it, we can treat it with understanding. And my hope is that just kind of shining a light on some of these basic neuro features and how to simulate them helps with the understanding. Please, there's a thing here. If you want the slides for this, let me know and I will send them to you. Woody Guthrie's copyright disclaimer was, the song's copyright U.S. on a sealed copyright now, 15 for a period 20 years. Anybody caught singing it without our permission, we might be good friends about it. Because we don't give a darn. Publish it, write it, sing it, swing to it, yodel it. We wrote it and that's it. And I know some people have already, from when we did this at PEI, have kind of adopted some of these things and twisted them around a little to make them more relevant. So if you want copies of the slides, sign up here. Give me your email address. I'll have it to you Monday. Now, and there's a book I did. I don't want to promote this, but it's there if you want to ask me about it. Okay. I always close my talks in this area with this poem. The poem was written by a guy from South Africa. His wife, his name was Leon Jaffe. His wife's name was Pitta, and he wrote this about her. You surprise me every day. Your fighting spirit, your vision, and its ability to draw me forward with you. Your loveliness, even as you plunge through the hardcore of the future. You achieve what others dare not even dream about. You know no barriers to the universe. You are my dreamer, my leader. With you, I am greater than myself. With you, my perpetual fear, carried like a rock, is turned to water to drain away through the tunnel of your love and courage. This day we face together another challenge. I here, too distant to do more than love you. I will myself to weakness that my strength may add to yours. I will myself to passivity that your actions may shame and humble all like me. Know then how much I admire you, and much more than that, love you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you. It is an honor. And what sport, Will Shakespeare said, shall we devise here in this garden to drive away these heavy thoughts of care? How about the closing remarks with Bev and Ed and Jeff? Thank you all.